I'm back today with what will probably be my last pregnancy question answer video for this pregnancy. I might continue doing question answer videos like this, just general topics after this pregnancy. But if you are new here, this is my 5th baby that I'm pregnant with. We're on about the last month-ish of this pregnancy. I told you before I don't have a due date in my head. I didn't even calculate a due date. I just know baby is due around mid-November-ish is all I know. And I've loved that. I've loved not having a date in my head to think, oh, we're approaching this due date. I'm this many weeks pregnant. I don't even know how many weeks pregnant I am right now. I know that sounds crazy to some people because in my past pregnancies, I knew exactly what day I changed weeks pregnant. Like I'm 36 weeks now, I'm 37 weeks. I mean, obviously I have about a month left, so I know approximately how many weeks I am, but it's been such a joy not having that number in my head this whole pregnancy. So just a little side note about me being pregnant for another month and talking about these videos, sharing about these videos. So when I had the idea to do these pregnancy question and answer videos, I never knew I would have so many sweet mamas leave me questions, and I have just been so honored to talk about this with y'all. Just sit down, and these are my absolute favorite videos to talk about. When I get on the Google document and see y'all's questions come through, I just get so excited to talk about this every time. So today we have 4 questions. We're going to be talking about epidurals, natural labor in the hospital. We're going to be talking about pregnancy teas and drinks, fermented drinks, and I brought one of those today to talk about with y'all, to sip on while we are talking through this video. And then we're going to talk about Naptimes again. I've had lots of questions come through about Naptimes, which isn't really pregnancy related, but I love talking about all things motherhood, children, napping, all of that. I'm happy to share on that. So that's why I said I might continue to do these question and answer videos maybe every other month, every 2 or 3 months. Okay, so let's just jump in. So before I ramble too much, because I get very chatty in these videos, if y'all haven't noticed, but I just love talking about this. I'm so passionate about talking and sharing about pregnancy. It excites me so much. Okay. I'm excited to be pregnant with you again. I love when y'all share that with me. Had my first in 2024 and pregnant with baby number 2 now. I was wondering what teas you drink in pregnancy. I know you like red raspberry leaf, and also what teas do you use for Remedies? Thanks for all that you do. Such a sweet. I just love when y'all let me know that you're pregnant at the same time, and just y'all sweet, sweet words of encouragement. So congratulations on your 2nd baby. I love that we were pregnant together in 2024 with my 4th baby, your 1st baby, now your 2nd baby, and my 5th baby. That's just, I love hearing the pregnancy stories, and we're all carrying life at the same time. It's just so special. Teas do I drink in pregnancy? Okay, so this right here is a little concoction. This is some fermented drinks as well as my favorite pregnancy tea. So this is Nora tea mixed with beet, Kvass, and kombucha. And that sounds like a lot, but I've just really been experimenting with mixing my favorite drinks lately, which I love. So I have another question on here about fermented drinks. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But Nora tea, you can't really tell, it's kind of like a brownish, greenish color when it's not mixed with beet, Kvass. But Nora tea stands for nettle, oat straw, red raspberry leaf, and alfalfa. So I do love red raspberry tea. And in my first 2 pregnancies, I only drank red raspberry tea as a pregnancy support. To learn about Nora tea, mixing 4 teas that are really good to support pregnancy. I've actually in the past opted out of any sort of iron support, and my midwife knows that, so she always talks to me about nettle infusions, strong nettle infusion. So just mixing a couple of tablespoons of nettle with water, putting it in the fridge and drinking it as a strong infusion. An infusion is stronger than a tea because it steeps in the fridge overnight, or you can put it out in the sun and steep it in the sun instead of just making a quick hot tea, whereas you put the tea leaves in, pour hot water over it, let it steep for 5 or 10 minutes. An infusion is going to be a lot stronger. So I love nettle infusions. That goes back to the Nora tea because nettle is the first ingredient in Nora, N-O-R-A. Nettle is one we drink all year round. When I'm not pregnant, my children drink it. It's wonderful for just overall sickness and wellness health. Red raspberry leaf is great for strengthening the uterus. I've heard some research on if you drink red raspberry leaf in the first trimester, which some people recommend not doing it because they say it can cause the uterus to cramp, to contract down, and could cause miscarriages. So I never drank it in the first trimester. I know people that have, and they have sworn, like, they're for certain that causes you to have a longer pregnancy because your uterus is just so strong. It's just holding baby in there. I never have had experience drinking red raspberry leaf before. I don't know, like a third of the way through my pregnancy, so maybe around like 15, 18 weeks, somewhere in there, close to halfway. is when I start drinking the Nora tea, which is what has red raspberry. My first two, I just drank red raspberry. I started it about halfway in the pregnancies. So those are my pregnancy teas. Oh, dandelion. I wanted to mention that one too. That one is just wonderful for liver support. I had a question a while back about getting up to pee through the night and supporting your liver. Dandelion tea is one of the ones I've actually implemented in this pregnancy to help with liver support, to help me from having to get up and pee throughout the night, because strengthening the liver helps us to sleep through that liver detoxing phase between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. So any kind of liver support, dandelion tea is wonderful for that. I actually just add the dandelion leaves to the Nora tea. So I make like a Nora dandelion tea, and then it's mixed with the kombucha and the beet kvass to get the benefits of the fermentation. But then every night before bed, I will have a warm dandelion Nora tea. So I just make my Nora tea as usual. I have a recipe for that, I think. If not, I'll leave the recipe down below on how to make Nora tea. And then I just add a few dandelion tea leaves to my infusion. So I'm getting the liver support with the pregnancy Nora tea support. I have a cup of that every night before bed. Mix it with a splash of vanilla, a splash of honey, a pinch of salt, and then the tea. And it's so refreshing before bed. But when I'm not pregnant, I'll probably continue drinking something like that, because Nora tea is wonderful for all seasons of female fertility, not just pregnancy. It's wonderful for postpartum, preconception as well, and just the general female overall health. You also asked about what teas do you use for remedies. So peppermint tea is an easy go-to one for children. It's wonderful for helping lower fevers. We don't like to lower fevers, we like to reduce the symptoms that fever brings, because fevers are wonderful. But I know they can be very uncomfortable, especially for children. So peppermint tea will kind of alleviate some of those symptoms. It's also good for stomach bugs. We also have used it to calm a stomach. Chamomile tea is great for just general sickness, headaches, sinuses. Chamomile is one of my children's favorite teas. So those are two that I can think of off the top of my head for overall remedies. I have a whole tea cabinet of just tea leaves, and then I have a little book that reminds me what tea leaves help with what sicknesses or what ailments. So if there's anything that comes up in our family, I just refer to that little book and know that this sickness, this ailment can be alleviated with this type of tea. So that's kind of what we do for remedies. As we're talking about fermentation in this drink, I'll skip to the next question that talks about fermented drinks. The question is, do you have any experience with making ginger bug soda? What are your favorite fermented foods and drinks? So I don't have any experience with making a ginger soda, but I was just reading I've been reading a book on biblical diets, and as y'all know, I got off social media a while back. So I've been reading a lot more books, and I've just been in awe of how much my eyes have been open to more health knowledge and things that I was just scrolling Instagram and just finding people share little tidbits of information on. But now that I actually delve into books, I'm learning so much more about fermentation and properly soaking grains and beans and legumes and more fermented drinks. So the book was talking about lacto fermented drinks, and it was talking about a ginger drink. I went and looked up a drink in the Nourishing Traditions, and one of them was the ginger soda. So I actually want to try that one out. But no, I have not made ginger bug soda. It sounds really delicious. I'm guessing that's a fermented drink. The recipe I was looking up was just like a ginger ale, a fermented ginger ale. So I'm guessing those are about the same. But no, I don't have any experience with ginger bug soda. I'm gonna have to go look that up now and see if that's the same as what Sally Fallon's Nourishing Traditions ginger ale soda drink was. It was a fermented ginger drink. Favorite fermented foods and drinks. Okay, so right now my favorite fermented drink is beet kvass and kombucha, because that's what I've been mixing all my teas with. I drink the teas regular. Throughout the day, I will always mix my teas with kombucha, beet kvass, water kefir, but right now my favorite fermented drink is beet kvass mixed with kombucha. Both of those I relearned how to make and got starter cultures from my friend who did a fermentation class about 3 months ago. My daughter and I went to that class and were reminded of our love for fermentation. She helps me with all the ferments, helps me make the beet kvass, the water kefir, the kombucha. So our home has really been loving the water kefir, beet kvass, kombucha. We also have been making milk kefir for years now, but I just started making milk kefir with our raw milk kefir grains, and then adding a splash of vanilla and maple syrup, putting it in a mason jar, putting a pour top lid on top so we can just pour out of it and have milk kefir throughout the day. Just because milk kefir is more digestible for our bodies than raw milk. Raw milk is wonderful. I've been doing some research between goat milk, sheep's milk, cow milk, and the digestibility of them. I won't get into that right now, but milk kefir, that's why I've been loving milk kefir lately. Fermented foods. Sauerkraut is always one of my favorite fermented foods. I've also been enjoying fermented salsa, fermented pickles we have a lot, just the kind of some basic ferments. That fermentation class, she introduced us to an Italian, I think, Italian or Mexican. It's a version of sauerkraut, but it's like spicy. I'll leave the recipe down below. It's called cortito. It's like a spicy sauerkraut. I love sauerkraut on everything. I put it on tacos, soups, eggs, meat, but this cortito is like a spicier sauerkraut. I'll leave the recipe below, but it's called cortito. That's probably my favorite fermented food right now. This question is, could you share your experience on nap times with all of your kids? Do they nap at the same time? Do you nap with them, or do they nap on their own? Do you sleep train for naps? Okay, so naps. I have told y'all before, I have been the crazy lady about naps with my first child, definitely, some of my second child. My mom kept my first child while I was still working and a little bit of time my second child, and I was like this strict nap lady. I wanted this specific nap schedule, this time to this time. You couldn't hold them, you had to lay them down and let them wiggle it out. So I tried sleep training for naps. None of that I do anymore. Now naps are in a wrap, a baby carrier. Now with my son, who is almost a year and a half, I will just put him to sleep in a carrier, a baby carrier, and transfer him to our bed. He has been the best napper yet of all of my children, and I've probably been the most laid back with him about naps. I've never napped with my children. Well, probably my first, because I was very sleep deprived with him because we tried sleep training. We were never sleeping at night. I probably did nap with him. But with my other children, I just realized that wasn't really feasible. When I had two children, they never seemed to nap at the same time. I tried to always make naps line up. That never seemed to happen. The baby at the time never seemed to line up with the toddler's nap or the 3-year-old's nap or whatever ages I had. My children actually stopped napping very early, like 3, sometimes 2. My oldest stopped napping at 3-ish, almost 4. My next one wanted to stay up with her brother. She stopped napping about 3. My third child stopped napping at 2. I know that's crazy to some people because some people's children nap till they're like 4, like good midday naps. My children just stop, and I've never pushed it. We'll see with my current youngest, when he'll stop napping, but they always just want to go to room time. We call it room time or quiet time upstairs with their siblings, and I've just let it be. Then they sleep good at night. I've become much more laid back about nap time, quiet time than I used to be. So right now, currently nap time looks like this. Today my parents actually came up in town for the day. They live about 2 hours away. So they visit us about every week, and that's usually when I get these types of videos done because our house is quiet. If my husband is home, he'll take them out too, but it's not always the case when my husband is home during nap time. So on a typical day, my baby is sleeping for a couple of hours, sometimes 3. He's been the best napper yet. My older children play upstairs quietly together. They color, they play games, they read books, they rummage around, make messes, but they have fun. Sometimes if it's a beautiful day, I'll let them play outside at their play area, which is right outside our playroom. I usually get my editing work done during nap time, but no, I have never napped with my children. It's just, I've never been a nap person just in general. I know some people like love an afternoon nap. I just never have. My husband is one that loves a nap, and that's a lot of times if he gets home early, he will go nap with the baby while the older kids are having quiet time or we're doing something outside. But that's just our nap routine. I've become a lot more laid back about it than I used to be. I used to stress when the naps didn't line up with the oldest, the baby, the toddler, whatever ages they were. I would get stressed and so mad about it, and I would just be like, the whole day is ruined because the nap time didn't line up. I'm never gonna get a moment to myself. But it was always okay, and I had to just let that go. There's a lot of things in motherhood that as we grow as mothers and our capacity grows as mothers, we let a lot of things that used to stress us out go. So I just encourage you, if you are a mama of maybe 2 and you're trying to get naps lined up and you're getting very stressed if they don't, let it go because there's something God's teaching you there. If maybe the baby's not napping when the toddler naps, or vice versa, maybe he's putting that intentional time, extra time, one-on-one time with you, with that child who's not napping, for a reason. And just pray into that, lean into that. And that's something that I wish I had done more back when I would get so stressed out and so mad and angry when naps didn't line up. Maybe God's trying to teach us or grow us in that certain area through that journey. I'm pregnant with my first baby. My husband and I are choosing to have a hospital birth, but I'm hoping to be as intervention-free and natural as possible. I know you would probably advise that we choose a birth center or home birth, but for various reasons, that is our decision. This is our decision at this point. Totally wonderful. I love that you've weighed the pros and the cons, and that's what you're comfortable with. Like I said at the beginning of this video, home birth, birth center, hospital, wherever you feel the most comfortable birthing is where you're going to have the best birth outcomes. That's what your body is ready for, your mind is ready for at that point. My question is, what are reasons you give for avoiding an epidural? I've done a fair amount of research, love that, and feel very convinced that I want to have an unmedicated birth, but I still feel like I would like to have very clear reasons in mind for when I'm in labor and possibly regretting my decision when I'm in a lot of pain. Right now, my reasons are I want to be able to move around, be in different positions, have a decreased chance of tearing, and experience a more intuitive birth. And I just don't like the idea of a needle in my back when it's not necessary. What would you add to this list? What would you expand on? Thank you for any information you can give. I so appreciated your videos. I stumbled across them right around the time I found out I was pregnant. Congratulations on your first pregnancy. I love that you've done this research and you're just reaching out for me to maybe elaborate on some of this, which is wonderful. I love when women do their own research and then they just seek someone who has been there to get more advice to expand upon their own research. I think that is beautiful and lovely, and you are setting yourself up for a wonderful birth by doing this research, because my first birth was in a hospital and I was kind of like you. At first I weighed, do I want an epidural? Do I not? I decided I didn't. I started researching a lot about epidurals and wanted to go in there as intervention-free as possible. I have my whole first hospital birth story as well as tips for the most natural birth as possible in a hospital. So I'll leave that video link down below. I've shared all my birth stories on this channel, and that birth story I did not film, but I talked about it. So I'll leave that video below if you want some more tips on going into the hospital and advocating for yourself for an intervention-free birth, intervention-free as possible birth. Because I did have some interventions in that birth. There were some regrets with that birth, but there was a lot of things I learned from that birth. Okay, so your questions are about epidurals. You want to go without it, but you kind of just want to know solid reasons why you chose that option when you get in there and you're in a lot of pain and they're like, would you like the epidural? Because they're probably gonna offer it. I was offered it so many times in my first hospital birth, almost caved to it because I thought I was gonna have to have a C-section. They were like, you've gotta have the epidural, you're getting tired, we've gotta put you on the epidural so you can rest, or you're gonna end up with a C-section. There was a lot of the threatening, and I call this the cascade of interventions, and epidural can be one of the first cascades of interventions, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But actually one of the first is probably just getting induced, whether it be with the Foley balloon, artificial rupture of membranes, starting Pitocin. All of those start that cascade of interventions, which lead to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, which can ultimately lead to what most women probably don't want, which is the C-section in this cascade. So reasons for not having an epidural. Personally, for me, in my first birth, I just wanted to be able to move around. That was my main reason, and that was one of the reasons you listed. So when you have an epidural, that stops your mobility most often because you are numb from a certain point down. I've never had one, so I don't know the exact feeling of it, but I know that you are numbed from a specific spot down. Problem that I see with this is that in a natural, unmedicated birth, there is no way I'd want to lay down and birth. It's just, it doesn't feel natural. It paralyzes, it kind of it makes you very uncomfortable. I've had to lay down a couple of times for my midwife to feel me, or a couple of times I've had cervical checks, and I'm the most uncomfortable in that position because it puts unnecessary pressure on the pelvis. Now, if you have the epidural, you're not going to feel that pressure, but the problem with that is your pelvic floor is also paralyzed. Your pelvic floor muscles are what help your baby's head rotate, tilt, and flex as they're passing through the vaginal birth canal. And if those muscles are paralyzed and not able to help tilt and rotate baby, that's when a lot of babies get stuck because that head is not having help from our muscles as the mama to rotate out. And then a lot of times they can lead to the intervention of forceps or vacuum removal. Shoulder dystocia, when baby's head doesn't rotate and their shoulders rotate properly through the use of our pelvic muscles. Again, forceps, vacuum. If you have shoulder dystocia, which can happen in an unmedicated birth too, when you're standing up, my midwife has some stories of that. In that situation, we can move mama, her hips can rotate, and thus for making baby rotate in mama's pelvis, baby can be born. And a lot of times shoulder dystocia is not a big deal because mama can get up and move, but during a paralyzed epidural, mama cannot get up, so doctors have to do maneuvers to get baby out, which is not ideal because a lot of times there is tearing, and you mentioned less chance of tearing in that. So just number one, lack of mobility. I wanted to be able to get up and move in labor and let my body pull baby down naturally with the help of gravity, with the help of my pelvic floor muscles, with my uterus contractions. So that was my number one reason back when I chose not to have the epidural in my hospital birth. A couple other reasons I wanted to mention is an epidural will typically stop our natural contractions. So you're in the hospital, you're having the contractions, they're getting really intense. You get the epidural, those natural contractions typically will stop. Then we need another intervention to get them to pick back up, which y'all know what that is. That's Pitocin. But what happens is our body's producing oxytocin in the brain, which helps with contractions. It helps with milk supply. It makes us happy. It makes us feel good. It helps with pain reduction. We've all heard of oxytocin. It's a wonderful hormone for labor. We have it throughout different events in our life too. It's like the happy hormone, but it's one of the most well known for labor. So when we are in labor, this is also the hormone that kind of sails mamas away into like labor land, happy labor land. If you've ever been in labor, you kind of know that you get into this like labor mode and you don't really know what's happening around you. You're just like kind of focused, you're feeling the pain, but you're also just like kind of zoned out into this like mental state of I guess just like working pain. I like to call it a working pain. It is a pain, but it's a pain for good, and you're working to bring something wonderful into this world. What I was saying is when you have the epidural, these natural contractions stop because no longer is your body perceiving pain to release oxytocin to help with that pain, to help you cope with that pain, to make pain less painful. And that oxytocin hormone was also helping your contractions stay regular and steady and helping your uterus contract. So all that just kind of stops typically. So then what happens? We have to bring contractions back because now we've started labor, we've given the epidural, this is stalled labor, but we don't want to stall labor because then other possible problems can occur because now we're not perceiving pain, we're not producing as much oxytocin, we're not letting the uterus contract as much or at all. So we have to introduce Pitocin. I've had Pitocin contractions without epidural. They're terrible. I highly do not recommend that to anybody. It is possible, but they're nowhere near natural God-given contractions, the pain level. When I went from my first to my second birth, I was a little bit scared because I was going from a hospital birth to a home birth, and I knew that Pitocin contractions were absolutely awful. And I went into that home birth thinking, wow, what if they're this bad again? There's no comparison, Pitocin contractions to natural God-given contractions, because you do have the oxytocin, that pain relief with the natural contractions. So Pitocin, when you introduce Pitocin, those contractions are so strong they can stress baby out. We know what happens when babies start showing signs of stress. Doctors panic, nurses panic, all of a sudden we have an emergency, we have to get baby out as fast as possible. It's just this cascade of interventions. And it doesn't always happen this way, but it can. And it happens this way more than not. You hear this exact story more often than you don't. There are beautiful hospital stories with epidurals and babies that came out wonderful and everything, but there's always some sort of side effect. So here's typically what happens here. We're having contractions, all of a sudden we get to a point we need that epidural, maybe we're 6 or 7 centimeters and getting really intense. We have the epidural, those contractions halt because oxytocin is no longer being produced to minimize pain because the epidural has minimized the pain. We're not feeling pain. The brain is not signaling pain anymore, so contractions stop. So oxytocin stops being produced, contractions slow down or stop. The cervix quits dilating because that oxytocin is helping the cervix dilate as well. We're continuing to make more oxytocin. to help cope with the pain. The oxytocin is stopped because of the epidural. We have to bring in Pitocin to continue the contractions, but the epidural has stopped. Pitocin can stress out baby. It can cause breastfeeding latch issues just because of the drug being introduced into mama and baby's body. So that is another reason. Just it stops the natural progression of labor because the stop of the oxytocin. Lastly, I wanted to mention it just takes away your control in labor. You did mention wanting to have more intuitive labor, natural labor as possible, which I love. And yes, it takes your control away. I've heard stories of mamas laying there with their epidural and there might be a situation where baby's heart rate is slowing or they need to push a little harder and mama's like, what can I do to help? And there's not much they can do. They can try to push, but you have lost the abilities, your body's ability to naturally feel the urge to push. Your body will feel the urge to push if you don't have an epidural. You will feel it, and there's no stopping it. But if you have the epidural, you don't feel that, and you can't help your body push with your uterus to naturally eject your baby out as the body was designed to do. So that control is taken away. So if labor stalls, again, you have to have either an additional Pitocin, raise your Pitocin levels. You have to have a rupture of membranes if that hasn't already happened. There's just a lot of interventions that come with an epidural. I'm not saying that that's wrong for everybody. That's just my personal reasons for choosing not to have an epidural in that first birth and then choosing a home birth from here on out. Just think that God designed our bodies to bring babies into this world, and though it brings pain, there's so much growth and strength and beauty that comes to that pain. It's a working pain. It's not a harmful pain. Your body is not in pain because you're in harm. Your body is in pain because you're bringing a new life into this world. And as soon as the baby is born, you feel no more pain. I mean, obviously there's the healing process. You said you wanted just some solid reasons not to get the epidural when you're in that hard part of labor. So I just encourage you to remember that this is a working pain. Your body is working so hard to bring baby down, to contract and squeeze baby down, and baby is working with you, and that this is not a pain that is harming you. It is a pain that is bringing you the most beautiful gift from the Lord. That's just what I always think about, is my body is trying to bring into this world this most beautiful gift from God. And that's what I focus on when the pain gets really intense. And breathing, taking deep breaths, finding positions that feel right. I always encourage mamas to let your body, don't fight a position that your body's wanting to go into. If your body's wanting to shift to your side or to hands and knees, or if you're wanting to sit on the toilet, or if you're wanting to stand and lean or lean against your husband or sway, don't fight any of those intuitive positions, because that is your body letting you know how you need to be in position to birth your baby, to let your baby rotate. Maybe your baby needs to tilt just slightly, and if you lift your knee into a lunge position, or if you lean over and relax your pelvic floor, kind of do like a pelvic tilt on your husband's shoulders or on your bed frame or over a chair, just leaning into those intuitive motions will help baby be born, and it will alleviate pain. I always recommend swaying. That helps me. My last birth, I almost like danced with my husband. My hands were on his shoulders, and I just like swayed. We were like slow dancing the entire last part of my labor, and it was like I've never done that in a labor. It just felt natural in that labor. One of my births, I just swayed over a chair. One of my births, I stood on hands and knees and just like breathed baby out. So it's so different every birth, but it's also so much the same, of just listening to your body, remembering that this is a working pain, not a hurtful pain, and that you will see your baby soon, and that if you can avoid the epidural, I always highly recommend it because of those reasons mentioned. I know that's not for everybody. If you go into a birth knowing that epidural is for you and that's just not something you want to face, just know that there can be some other interventions that come about. So I think I read the statistics that it's like 75% of women choose the epidural, which is fine. It's a alternative given to us now, but I don't think that's how God intended us to birth. I know it's a modern convenience we have to bring babies into this world, but it doesn't come without its complications. You can't have a completely complication-free birth, but what problems come afterwards? Are there feeding problems? Are there latch problems? Are there issues with babies positioning, like are there issues with baby's posture, are there sleeping problems? There can just be a whole slew of problems that arise, and I've totally seen that with my first child's hospital birth and all of the interventions we did have with the Pitocin and I had some sleeping medications and just the prolonged traumatic birth and how he latched, how he breastfed, how he slept compared to my next 4 births that were completely intervention free at home with a midwife. How much better they latched, how much better they ate, how much better they slept. There's just a total night and day difference. How much better they even gained weight compared to my first child to my next 3 children. There's just a night and day difference in maybe you don't see the complication in the birth with the epidural or the interventions or the Pitocin, but you're gonna see it in some way afterwards if you didn't see it during the birth. So that's kind of my own personal experience with hospital birth versus the home birth. Again, I totally respect your decision for a hospital birth. As you mentioned, that's just what y'all's choice has been, whether it be for comfort reasons, financial reasons. There's so many reasons you would choose a hospital birth. Some families choose hospital births over home birth, and that's completely fine. I just encourage you to do the research on going in there, advocating for what you want. If you can have a doula, that's also a wonderful resource so that she knows what your birth wishes are and can help advocate for you. I did have a birth doula in my first birth, and that was such a blessing from God that she was there and able to help advocate for us when things got tough. So I will leave that video linked down below if you want to watch my hospital birth story and some tips I give for going into a hospital birth if you are wanting an intervention-free birth without an epidural, without Pitocin, if you can avoid it. Again, I had Pitocin in that birth, and it was just night and day difference from those contractions to natural contractions. The oxytocin-ridden contractions that God gives us when we birth our babies. So those are all the questions. I hope that was helpful. I'm so excited for you that you stumbled upon these videos when you found out you were pregnant. I have several of them now, so if you missed any, you can go back and watch them. Also have some more videos in my 3rd pregnancy where I just talk about options you have in pregnancy that you may not have known. This goes anywhere from testing to fetal monitoring, Doppler, fetoscope. There's so many topics I talked about in that video that just to give mamas more informed choices, give them places to research these choices and not just blindly have to trust what their care provider tells them, because our care providers care for us, but they also have an agenda that is part of their protocol, and typically they're going to advocate for that. So I just always encourage mamas, know your research, know what you want, go into your pregnancy, labor, and birth with informed decisions, informed research. So I always leave research for things I'm talking about in the description box. All of those videos about making informed choices are very heavy, strong description boxes, giving you tons of places to do research on all of the topics I mentioned. So thank y'all so much for listening to me chat about pregnancy and pregnancy options and Naptimes and fermented drinks and pregnancy teas in this video. As always, I just am so appreciative that y'all take the time to submit these questions to me so that we can talk about them here, share them with other mamas. I know we don't all agree in all areas, and that's perfectly fine. I'm strictly just sharing my own research, my own personal opinions, research here, and giving you places to start your own research. So I love it. So I hope this was encouraging to you. I'm praying for you in your pregnancy. Thank you for the sweet mamas who submitted questions in this video. If you have any more, if I can get another one of these videos in, I'll be glad to make them before this baby comes or even after. So submit them down in the description box below. There's a link to a Google form where you can submit your questions to me, birth related, pregnancy related, postpartum related. We're about to get into my postpartum season, so I'm happy to talk about postpartum topics coming up here soon, or just motherhood related, naptime related, eating related, cooking related, any of that. I love just chatting with y'all in this style of video. So I hope you are encouraged. Praying for y'all in your fertility journeys, motherhood journeys, and I will talk to y'all soon.